To believe in an ideal is to be willing to betray it. It is something no Sith or Jedi has ever truly learned.
Welcome to the epilogue of Monad of Creation podcast, Body of Work. Hello. The Monad of Creation podcast is over. It has been a great time, and I appreciate everyone who has cared enough to listen and observe. And I've done that in eternal futility, so I'm not going to do that ad infinitum here. Gratitude is a constant for those who truly know and feel, and it's unspoken often. But I understand that for those who have forgotten, it needs to be openly expressed very often. Anyway, welcome to the epilogue. I have been away for about 2 weeks, I think, and I was going to end the show on eternal futility and just leave it at that. If you're here because the podcast has magically disappeared from Spotify, Apple, Zencast, and other things, welcome in. It does not fit my financial budget to keep the podcast on host sites anymore, on Spotify or Apple or anything, so hopefully you found your way here. I am not putting this on the podcast sites. If you found your way here because of that reason, congratulations, that's awesome. It's awesome, but it's normal. You're here. It's the now moment. So, I'm going to explain why that is happening, why I'm not deleting the YouTube, and what I've learned through podcasting and stepping into teaching. So, first of all, the main thing is on the podcast, I can no longer consciously support paying money, which I don't have the total abundance that I'd like to have here. I can't do that monthly just to put up some perspectives that I had in the past and still align with now. That being said, I don't disagree with anything I've ever said on the show. I don't think it's bad perspective, but I do understand that, as I said in the update episode, I've made people very frantic because of the hardcore disciplines, but hopefully people who listen to the early episodes keep listening to see this whole entire turnaround and indwelling obliteration of what I thought I was and what I will continue to be, which I do not know what is, which is beautiful to me. Which means, simply, people who started listening to the show, if they align with me at that frequency, they're going to be very truther-oriented minds. And as the show progresses, I start obliterating and healing my ego the whole way through. So I obliterated and healed my ego the whole way through, and I'm still obliterating and healing my ego now, and I will continue to do so. Otherwise, I prefer not to live anymore. And so I can't afford to put it on podcast sites anymore. But I'll leave it on the YouTube, because if it just magically disappears, hopefully people do Google searches, and Google prioritizes its own companies, so the YouTube should pop up. They'll either get a funeral doom record called Monad of Creation by Mournful Congregation, which is the entire human race right now, a mournful congregation of ignorant or knowledgeable people who have little to no solutions and very few solutions. They'll find a funeral doom metal record or my podcast. If they find my podcast, they'll have the whole access to every podcast episode that was on the podcast site they were listening to anyway. So I'm not too concerned, because the people who will find their way off those platforms to YouTube are the ones who should probably continue listening, because that indicates they cared enough to go Google search or DuckDuckGo search or whatever search engine Monad of Creation to see if I still exist on the internet. So I'm not worried about podcast. It's gonna be gone in 6 days. YouTube will still be here. And now, as far as keeping on YouTube, the channel is very shadow banned. I doubt people will find it through algorithms alone, but through word of mouth, sure, that's great. Not much to say there. other than I will not post anything beyond this epilogue. I will not. And that could change, but it's probably a 97% chance I will absolutely not. 97% chance I will not post anything on this YouTube channel again. And as far as what I've learned, that's the bulk of this. I have learned so much through this journey, and I'm going to pull up the list of episode titles and just briefly look at what I've learned, where I was wrong, where I have failed, and what I had continued to evolve with and within. So let's look at the episodes. First episode, Introduction, Acknowledgements, 2020 Visions. Sure, that's great. I mean, it's whatever. I talked about who influenced me in a positive way towards finding the unknowns and the mutable truth within everything, and fixing myself, and evolving myself. And I explained how in 2020 people have choices to make, and this is the two paths people can take, and I said the path that most people should take if they desire positive outcomes for the world would be choices based in truth and love. And you know what? I still think that all that needs to be said is people need to make choices that are based in the clear, truthful paths in those moments and situations, the truth. What is the truth? And love, unconditional love. Unconditional love. Which means appreciating and respecting all life everywhere, all things everywhere. The truth, unconditional love. Because what that does is it facilitates reason and empathy. Reason and empathy when braided together are literally the foundation for what it takes for someone to continue evolving and transcending and making good choices. So episode 1, that's what I started it with. Objective reality perception, manifestation, sure. There are immutable truths. Everyone's perception is either clear from either a certain percentage clear or a certain percentage illusory, and false and misled. Or doing their own little subjective reality instead of subjective experience. Subjective experience is true. Everyone's experiences are different within the objective reality we share, and at times experience alone or together. Manifestation, manifestation is very complex. I taught the basics. Talked about the very, very, very basic components of manifestation. I did not get into the nitty-gritty, which can be sought elsewhere. Sovereignty, authenticity, love. Yeah, sovereignty. Rulership of yourself. Authenticity. Total honest expression, raw expression of yourself. Unconditional love, yeah. And real, true unconditional love values truth. I know I said that in there. Knowledge, intuition, discernment. I put too much of an emphasis on knowledge in this episode, but I still stand by this. Intuition can run amok and get totally destroyed and create nonsense in the world and harm and decay and suffering and a total disregard for truth and things that are good and nice in the world. If intuition is not done with clarity and accurate knowledge, or knowledge that is actually based in truth, and discernment isn't throughout the whole process. Discernment continues to be clear, receptive, not skeptical, not rigid, but discerning and receptive to what you don't know and what's outside of you. Yeah, sure, with reason. It's a whole process. I could refine that, but once again, I'm not going to sit around and refine these things. Fear, courage, strength. Fear is real. You don't ignore fears. I don't think I put too much emphasis on that. You find out why you're afraid or why there is fear happening, for sure. And you don't mock or make fun of things or people who are afraid. You don't, okay? Someone's afraid of some sort of contagion in the world. Yeah, you don't just make fun of that. And if someone's afraid of the government, yeah, you don't make fun of that either. They both got traumas to work through. Fear, courage, strength, yeah, listen to that if you want. If you haven't, I don't know why you're listening to Epilogue if you haven't listened to the totality, but that's fine. Totally fine. Totality of my subpar podcast, that I value a lot. Trinity, union, healing. Oh God, I could refine that so much. Trinity, union, healing. First of all, Trinity is whatever. Yeah, triune consciousness. I think the primal aspects of creation itself typically have 3 components. I think about eternal, internal, and external these days. At the time I think mother, father, child. I don't even remember what I talked about in terms of Trinity itself. Union and healing, though. The union of extremes, polarity extremes, the union and braiding and transcendence beyond duality, yes. Masculine, feminine, magnetic, electric, those types of things. And healing, yeah, obviously healing is important. I did a talk with Ahana. She talks about porn, sexuality, spirituality, NoFap, and I did an interview with her. We talked about the New Age obfuscation, the obfuscation in the New Age movement, and what I got to say here is there are immutable truths within the New Age movement. Those are very hard to perceive and find out what actually are accurate and true. But there are very fragmented, immutable truths within the New Age movement. There are. I don't know why it's on my mind, but I feel like I should say take heed with the ufology and the channelings happening on the planet. Take heed with that. And baseless claims, yeah. And also, your resonance with what you resonate with and perceive as true in your experience, cross-correlating all of that. Be careful. Matter consumption, we talked about food, that was good. Twin flames, pretty much talked about how not until someone's totally embarking on their eternal self, we didn't use this terminology, but this is how I'll paraphrase it. What we agreed upon was twin flames aren't fucking real or anything at all until the individuals who are pondering about twin flames actually embark and get real with reality and crush their fucking ego and the bullshit within themselves and say, I devote myself to the mysteries, to the unknowns, the totality of truth and reality and my place in it. And then people start going, maybe twin flames are real. What the fuck? And maybe something happens. Who knows? But pretty much I think what I said, and I think she asked me my opinion on twin flames and then I gave my opinion. My opinion was that doesn't really matter and no one will really understand or know until the two individuals really get a grasp of what they need to get done and do it, A genuine being, and then we ended on like genuine versus fake people. What I have to say about that, it's sort of imbalanced. Fake people are great, they're part of truth, they exist, man. Okay, I talk about that in my new Patreon talks. And yeah, genuine being. Even if someone is doing something that's super anti-life, anti-goodness, they're real, they exist. They've just forgotten. And if one begins to think that they're irrelevant in the totality of existence and life itself, they failed in what they claim to care about. I did a talk with young Ted. We talked about anarcho-primitivism. We talked about the artificial constructs of the state and this consumptive artificial society that we live in. I'd like to talk about how that's the way I talked about things was sort of imbalanced. But it's true. It's all based in truth. I was still more balanced towards like get out of society, get out of cities, get out of civilization, go do your own shit, get with some people or yourself if you can, and become self-sustainable. That's the stance I took, really. But I also understood that a lot of people can't do that. But now I really understand a lot of people can't do that. And I think there's some value to people who stay in the world and absolutely not of it or about it. In cities and whatever. There's some beauty to that. Being in the middle of the muck and grime of dumpster land and over technology, so much technology everywhere, artificial technology. But guess what? We're here to purify that shit. We're here to purify all of that. And we're here to really heal and restore eternal, actually based in truth principles and ideas and concepts. So if you just become reactionary to it, you fail yourself once again. I didn't plan to do this, actually. This is sort of fun. I talked with Corey of Nature's the Answer. He's a great guy. We did a talk about natural law, integration, responsibility. That was good. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It was great. I aligned with those ideas. I aligned with the ideas I talked with Fred, Authentic Awakening, Heyoka Path, Pete Berkman with Anamanaguchi. So good. It was a great time. We mainly talked about music, and we touched on Twitter and then inner child things here and there, and the band Anamanaguchi, great, pure, fun, within reason music. Great interview with him. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Young Ted. Thank you, Ahana. And then we went into cleansing, fire, purification, eternal self. Yeah, I was on one there. Blessed energy, that was good. Streetwise Ascension, I would totally retitle that. I don't think anything we talked about there was specifically in regards to ascension, bioregenesis, any of that stuff. It helps with consciousness evolution and expansion, but like specifically ascension, no. But no, great spiritual ideas. Just more streetwise spirituality, really. Which that episode is in a lot of alignment with, I think, a lot of other things out there. So, engaged attachment, friends, eternal family. Yeah, I talked about how people will, if you're disharmonic with an individual, you're going to just not get along with them. And even if you respect them, you might have to part ways. Engaged attachment, engaging with things that you don't really feel harmonic with, and you have to anchor in and respect it and understand it's worth getting through, talking about, but you don't make attachments with anything. Eternal family. Yeah, those ideas in episode 14, good. Assumption, expectation, cause. Everything 15 through... This is where it gets interesting. Everything 15 through... Alright, assumption, expectation, cause, holistic intelligence, integration and application of holistic intelligence, perceiving truth, paradox of intelligence, angelic nihilism, immutable spirit, discipline, destiny, devotion. Blessed energy came back on. I even almost forgot about that. Salvation, core solutions continued. Alright, everything from 15 to 24 is really, really fine. I love all those episodes. I stand by them. And this talk with Blessed Energy is good. Salvation, great, I think. Core solutions and core solutions continue. I would say core dynamics. If I had to refine that, I would refine those talks as core dynamics. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. The concepts therein are good. Everything coming up, esoteric, omni-neutral, I might have been a little too hard on the esoteric folks out there, but they need to understand that the esotericism and omni perspectives, being neutral, is all about discovering that which you do not know and not making what you know one thing, and you surely don't make it an operating system for your mind and you stay there. You don't stay there. You don't stay there. You don't. Otherwise, you're actually just totally in opposition to what you say you care about, because esoteric texts, ancient past, which we're talking about ancient past before them, which we're talking about ancient past before them, which we're talking about ancient pasts before them. Yes, it's perpetual. The ancient texts are new. And continual evolution did not happen with what we have observable. There's a lot of mysteries. So the mysteries themselves require continual evolution and shattering of stagnancy. I see a lot of stagnancy. So, I was just hard on them again. There's no way to be soft on that. I'm sorry. Other than saying, of course, I love you and respect you, but I mean, when I look at the actual ideas themselves, it's like I can't help but clarify. That's why I have to stop. I don't refine the past. I just refine that for, 2 minutes? That's what I have to say about that. Neutral perception is perception alone. Your path is not neutral. Your path is engagement with things, and that's not neutral. You're inherently interacting with things. That's not neutral. Neutrality is perception. It's perceiving clearly. And I don't know if I made that abundantly obvious in the show, but I'm just covering my bases. Purity. What I didn't really emphasize was empathy in this, and just, really respecting illusion for what it is. It's things that I've forgotten. Yeah, guys, it's not good. But to make your whole entire existence about fighting it and sacrificing yourself for it, they won. The illusory things. Yeah. So you hold space for the knowing that, no, they're not this nice little baby doll or dog or cat that you want to go pet. No, not at all. Not by any means. Illusion in the world, not by any means. We gotta understand that the reason things are illusory and coercive, and there's a lot of slavery in the mind, and physically often, sadly, very tragically, is because that there's a fall, and that was because of human naivety and letting things in our world that didn't belong. Letting ideas, beings, ideologies, dogmas in our world that did not belong. And epigenetically, it creates the reality we're in now. So, the causal factor for it was a once pure thing. And even though the now moment is not the thing you really want to associate with, if you don't want to associate with something, purity involves knowing and understanding and acting within empathy for it, because you know what it is. All creation, all existence deserves unconditional love. And unconditional love is not blind association. It's not blind saving other things. It's not martyrdom or salvation. Patience. Yeah, I had a event in that episode, and I explained how obsessing over truth and thinking you can convince people about truth, even if they say they care too, and once it's obvious it doesn't work, banging your head against a wall and also turning into an angry monster yourself is not patient anymore. And truth values patience, okay? And once again, must be met with unconditional love and no false ego, zero false ego, healed, obliterated ego that is continually obliterating, healing its parts and itself, you, me, totality. Truly humble update and beyond, man. I was going to continue the show without numbers. I thought that was enough. Ha ha. No. I realized that. What I was doing in Mod of Creation. Alright, truly humble update. Star Wars show with my buddy Chase. Choice to exist. Dynamics, wants and needs. Eternal futility. Those are all things I think that I stand behind those forever. I really do. Those episodes, awesome. But listen, I was going to do just non-numbered episodes. Well, guess what I had? I had a subconscious teacher complex in my mind. I thought I was like some mystery school teacher from years and years ago, where maybe mystery schools and temples and studies, diligent studies with diligent existers could exist now in a way that I wouldn't feel like I'm obsessing or sacrificing myself. And what I ended up doing was obsessing and sacrificing myself. And I honestly, listen, I'm still making content in a lot of ways, so I'm not giving up at all. Anyone in the truth community who's assuming I'm giving up. And no, it's not mean. Anyone who's a lukewarm spiritualist who thinks I'm being mean by just stopping offering myself and my ideas openly like this all the time, every time I have them, right? No, I'm not giving up, and I'm not being mean. I'm doing what I have to do in finalizing this. You know, what I want and need to do. And if anyone's operating within what they want and need to do, truly want and need to do, within empathetic reason, yeah, they're not in opposition to the unutterable. They're not in opposition to truth. They're not in opposition to God. Okay? They're not in opposition with themselves. They're not in opposition to others. You know? So, here we go again. If you want to... Listen, this is how I think about it. I'm not putting the link in this description. I'm not doing any of that. If you made it this far and you actually care, and you're not triggered, I feel like I have a duty. Listen, screw that. I want to tell you this. I'm making ruminations and occasional talks on my Patreon at Diligent Existor. Diligent Existor on Patreon. And you can check it out if you want. But I'm not going to tell you what I'm not doing. What I'm doing over there is occasional talks and a Discord community where you have to explain who you are when you enter the Discord community, and just introduce yourself, and then you're in. And there are payment options, you know? That's it, man. As far as philosophy is concerned, that's it. That's it. My perspectives on reality and how to help people, that's it. So, that being said, what I've learned about the inconsistencies with the episodes that I just listed is that what we've also learned is a lot about martyrdom, narcissism, and how martyr-based ideas and embodiments and actions can be done subconsciously and unconsciously without the conscious minds knowing. And this is just not really having a fundamental grasp about what you're doing. And I did that the whole show in terms of thinking that my behavior was totally pure. My behavior was totally where it needed to be in that moment, totally holistically, and it wasn't. You know, people kid themselves continually, and I do that all the time. And as a human being right now, contemporary humanity, there's no other way. You kid yourself all the time. If you're not honest about that, you're kidding yourself by not being honest about it. Right now, I went over those episodes because there are definitely inconsistencies, and I'm not refining endlessly. I'm ending it. And life is perpetual in nature. There's always constant evolution. So anything anyone did in the past is going to have to be further evolved and transcended towards a more powerful, potent, pure type of being and existence. And so, with that being said, this epilogue is really the 3 P's that I wanted to talk about. Purity and patience, with the prerequisite of holistic intelligence, empathetic reason, with the prerequisite of empathetic reason, loving reasoning. Purity and patience must be continually strived for and embodied to get the actual type of power, the type of personal power that an individual desires and wants and knows is good to exist within. And I understand now that within purity and patience, you can't just do one thing forever. You can't just do one thing forever. You can't just have one general thought process forever. You can't just feel one general way forever. That is called dogma. Dogma is actually a script within oneself, programming their outcomes and their behavior and their actions, and their choices, thoughts, and feelings, and everything. It's dogma. When there's not a value placed healthily within purity and patience, with the prerequisite foundation and holistic intelligence and a love of truth. Patience and purity, when it's not actually worked on as a discipline, as a flowingly decisive discipline throughout, and the obliteration and healing of ego is not done continually, what does this all imply, guys? This all implies that those things being talked about is great, but it's a one and done type situation. You don't do it forever. That becomes an identity. That becomes a false identity. That becomes a guru mentality. That becomes, oh, I know everything. I've done all I need to do. And this is it, you know? So no, I'm not a teacher in the colloquial sense at all. I'm not a fucking guru. I'm not someone who thinks they know the mysteries of existence, reality, myself, others, planet Earth, natural law, eternal law, ascension, anything in its totality. Or, I'll put it this way, I don't know enough. I haven't experienced enough. And anyone who's said that they know enough and they've experienced enough, they're none of my concern. I am not going to criticize even beyond what I deem enough. It's blatantly obvious. And if someone doesn't have the ability to see that, I honestly just will let them walk their path. Free will choice supersedes all, in my opinion. So even by stepping into a situation where I'm going to talk forever, it doesn't make sense. And it's funny because I'm doing a teaching right now. Technically, everything is teaching everything all the time. So, for me, to perpetually have a Monad of Creation podcast is asinine, borderline, psychotic, pathetic, and fucking insane. It's my honest opinion. And I felt the lows of it. I felt the lows of borderline depression, never suicidal tendencies, and the ungrounded highs of thinking I was onto something to share with the world. I never want to be there again. And I know I couldn't, even if I decided. I'd just be a better guru. I'd be a better... I'm trying not to get nasty. I'd be a better loser. Okay? I'd have lost in what I say I care about. I would have lost and failed continually in what I said I care about. Listen to this. Failure is necessary in a distorted, externalized realm because it teaches the most important lessons. But you still want to, what? Make the amount of failure smaller? You still want to, negate failing so often? Because if you're failing so often, guess what it means? You're not actually learning and integrating the knowledge that you have gained. So until there's a point where the failure is sparse, few and far between, there's some deep contemplations about self that need to be had. And I'd also say that deep contemplations about self and truth itself and everything in reality is a good thing to do as a general thing to do. And with that being said, it's nothing to obsess over. So obsession of any sort just facilitates decay and death. I don't think any of us want that. So this epilogue is really just the final little perspective share, teaching. It's the final thing I have to say on the Monad of Creation work. It's cyclical looping what I am avoiding. Let me read an Instagram post with my voice. I stand by this statement. You know, I'd probably refine this too, so maybe I shouldn't even read it. Let me just skim it real quick. I posted this. To say that existence works in mysterious ways is to admit one's ignorance. Is refusal of the unknown and clinging to one's rigid perspective the same downfall? Any mystery can be solved with a healthy knowledge and unrelenting effort. Cosmic, eternal in scale. Yet many will lose sight. To be knowledgeable, strong, and clairvoyant is to have aptitude, but to forget the perpetual incineration of inner falsehood is to invite perpetual dissonance within and without. No being is right, no being is wrong. All beings are countable, precious, insignificant, meaningful. All have specific wants and needs. None deserve more respect than another. None deserve more respect than anything else. As for myself, another precious being as you are, I still have no plans, yet the goal is to prevent cyclical, degenerative looping at all costs. All-encompassing as ever, yet this is about inner space. All are truly on their own. That is something only experience can teach. Enjoy yourself however that may be. Me, as something I continually remember, an individual and eternal whole. Alright. I don't know. I don't even care to really skim that over and nitty-gritty deep dive it, okay? I said it. I think it's blatantly obvious by now. I've done all the rhetoric-based spewing that I need to do in teaching and talking on monad of creation. So monad of creation, for what it's worth, has, like I said, an eternal futility. I'm technically still a certain percentage looping right now. I'm just clarifying, actually, eternal futility. I'm clarifying and giving you guys the awareness of what is with this body of work. And I am fully aware of what I'm doing here. It's intentional as ever. What I'm not concerned with is how anyone takes it. I'm not. So, if you never want to do whatever, if you never want to look at any things I've mentioned, it doesn't matter. If you want to unsubscribe, it doesn't matter. If you want to hate me, it doesn't matter. If you want to sit with what you've heard me talk about, really think about what would drive a being to spend all this time doing something so seemingly psychotic from a degenerative contemporary human perspective. With all their personal time and energy and quantum, if you really want to think about why someone would want to do that, that's what I would actually suggest. Suggestion. Contemplate why I even decided to do any of this. I can give you some truth, but I can't possibly give you the whole entire reason. You know, here's a contemplation to accompany that one. Why do you like to hear me talk? And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about your path? What are you going to do about your life? Your life is precious, and the last thing I would want is for anything to go to waste. So what I'd like to say here is, know your wants and needs to the best you can. Braid them to the best you can. Flow in and out of polarity extremes healthily if you can. Try to stay neutral in perception as much as you can. Try embody empathetic reason as much as you can. Be yourself first and foremost. And if you've already listened to this show, you probably like truth. So I don't have to say value truth, because a lot of people out there say be yourself and ignore a lot. But guess what? I think they're doing the right thing too. All is well. All is well, and that cannot be taught. It can be encouraged to be sought and learned. All is well. And this has been me. diligent exister, just like you. It shouldn't have to be said, but thank you.